To Australian Women in Beekeeping. My name is Kate Bamford and I'm here with Cormac Farrell, who is currently Canberra Region Beekeepers Apiary Officer and formerly the ACT Beekeepers Association President. Hi Cormac, and welcome to this interview. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Thank you, thank you. So let's jump straight into it. We've only got 20 minutes. So firstly, let's talk a little bit about you and what's your story? How did you get into bee world?
I got into bee world mainly originally through native bees. I'm a forester. I'm a forest ecologist by training. So for forest ecology in most native Australian plants, their pollinators are not European honeybees. They're obviously native bees. So I was always interested in them as pollinators for the species I was working with. But we bought a house, my partner and I, we had this beautiful apricot tree in the backyard, and it didn't set fruit. And being a botanist, I took a look and went, that's insufficient pollination, we should get some bees. So I really wasn't interested at all in the honey. We got the bees full of the apricots, and we absolutely got wonderful apricots from then on. Though the fact that I wasn't interested in the honey meant that I didn't really pay much attention. The first time we harvested honey, I think we had like about a dozen jars lined up, and we thought, that'll be about right. And we harvested a full box. We didn't think this through, and honey just went everywhere. We were sort of filling up saucepans and Tupperware containers with this stuff, trying to store it and get it sort of out of the extractor. Oh my God, it was a debacle. But yes, we very next day we went straight to Kmart, bought a pallet of jars to put all this honey in.
How long ago was that?
It's nearly 7 or 8 years ago now. So native bees for about, 20 years of my career, but European honeybees for about 7 or 8 years now.
So do you have any hives in your backyard, or do you mainly tend to the apiary?
I do. I have one hive. I'm allowed one hive in my backyard. And the reason that everything is sort of branched out, and a lot of people know me as the apiary manager for Parliament House and originally for Oricon, where I used to work, that was because of that one hive restriction. When they did swarm onto my partner's favourite yellow dress, I had to move them really quickly. She was like, if they damage my dress at all, you're dead. So you'd only allowed one hive. So I had a quick conversation with my office manager. We ended up with bees on the balcony of our office. We're an engineering firm. They really enjoyed that. Then when they had to move, we ended up trying to have to find a new home for them. And that started a conversation with Parliament that turned into the Parliament of Australia starting in beehives.
So how long ago was that?
That's 3 years ago now. Yeah, so it's been 3 years. It's been quite a while, and it's been really successful. They've really welcomed them, and we've branched out. We now don't just keep European honeybees, we keep Australian native stingless bees now as well in Parliament, which is lovely. Yes. And that is, again, a very steep learning curve for me, because they're a tropical species. I'm a frost zone ecologist. I work in the colder parts of Australia. We don't really have the sugar bag tetragula bees in these environments. So working with this species is completely a new learning curve for me, and a lovely one.
Yes. So who did you approach Parliament House about wanting to keep the bees there, or were you invited, or how did this all come about?
No, we approached them. So we came to them. We had our bees in a temporary apiary, and about the same time, ANU Apiculture Society, which was also keeping bees at the ANU, the university. They had to move because the building was going where their apiary was. So we were both stuck in the same pickle. And we both jointly went to Parliament, started a conversation. They said, look, we're going to have a lot of questions and we're going to need to do a lot of paperwork. If you can live with that, let's keep talking. So we kept talking, and about 6 to 7 months later, we came to an arrangement, and we were able to move hives onto Parliament House, and it's been great.
So how many members of Parliament have you had in bee suits doing an inspection with you?
Oh, I actually have to work this out. I think it's been about 4 or 5. So not as many as you'd think. A lot of staff have come along and helped out, and a lot of people have visited briefly. I think one thing that people don't realise, there's this popular perception that politicians just sort of sit around a lot of the time. They don't. They have this amazingly horrendous, overscheduled life. They work just stupid hours. It cures you of any desire ever to be a politician, being around politicians. It's the most hectic, insane lifestyle I've ever witnessed and I work in private business. They are the hardest working people I've ever seen in my life. So we have to schedule things very carefully, but we have got a couple of parliamentarians that have put the suit on, and they've really enjoyed it. They've loved it. And we find that people from the building, it's a fairly high pressure environment, as you can imagine, and people come down and just sit near the bees and watch them work just to calm and chill out. It's a form of, and as beekeepers, we know this, it's really calming and lovely to sit and watch your bees work. Yes. And we're finding people are discovering that as well. So we don't sort of make a huge promotion of it, but we know that people do that, and that changes my management a little bit, because I do check the temperament of the hive a lot to make sure that they are always safe for people to be around, that we do regular requeening to make sure that we're keeping nice, easygoing, gentle bees that aren't going to cause a problem for anyone.
And so the site at Canberra, is it an enclosed space like an atrium, or how are these girls having to go up and out over the top of the Canberra buildings, like the Parliament buildings? I'm just curious,
Yeah, so they're in
the
Parliament House.
To go up.
Yeah, they're in a garden, in the outer garden. So there's the outer ring. There's a ring road that goes around Parliament, and outside that ring road is there's 30 hectares of native gardens of all beautiful flowers. Okay. And it's managed, the ground staff don't really use pesticides at all. They use integrated pest management.
Oh, okay. How long have you been adopting that for?
For a very long time. I don't know exactly, but they have a staff member who specialises in this and has done for a long time. Okay. So they grow predators and release them selectively. They do occasionally use pesticide controls, mainly for the bardy grubs in the lawn, but very, very selectively and very occasionally, and they're very careful about it. So they test a lot of the integrated pest management systems that CSIRO develops. So it's lovely. I never have to worry about my girls being accidentally sprayed by someone. And we have this, and Canberra in general has very low usage of pesticides. We are a city of gardeners. So I also manage rooftop apiaries in the city. Yep. And I'm also the apiary manager for the Jerrabombra Wetlands Training Apiary. That's Canberra Region Beekeepers. So that's our main training apiary. We have 20 hives set up, all different configurations, so that people can essentially try before they buy. So we have a lot of beginners courses, and instead of people having to guess, what should I do without ever having experienced that hive, you can try a top bar hive, you can try a Langstroth hive. We've got a couple of Warray hives. We've, of course, got a flow hive, but we've got a couple of different varieties of Langstroth hive as well, so people can really see what they're getting themselves into, get a feel for what hive works for them in their situation, but also that we can run advanced beekeeping courses like natural beekeeping courses in a beautiful wetland environment.
Okay, and I also read that the ACT government planted 17,000 flowering trees along roadsides for bees.
Well, that's the planned additional plantings. So I'm an environmental scientist and I've specialised in urban ecology. So one of the things I did was an analysis of their tree base. So there's about 200,000 trees in the urban forest in Canberra. It's one of the larger and more advanced urban forests in Australia. And a lot of those are flowering trees. So, for instance, in Belconnen, where I live, we have in the roadsides already 21,000, 22,000 flowering trees planted along the roadsides. And you definitely notice it. When they're flowering, you see a big rush of nectar come into your hives. There are a lot of really fantastic honey-producing species as well. Yellow box, red box, your classic honey, Australian eucalypt honey-producing plants. We're also seeing a lot of banksias being planted now for smaller roadside treatments. And interestingly, that's a response to solar panels. You don't want to have the really big trees that shade the top of people's houses.
Yeah.
So in that situation, you've got smaller trees being planted like snow gums and banksias. Beautiful, beautiful for us. And of course, banksia honey is just stunning. And also callistemon. Callistemon's a really popular street tree now. So you've got the small tree versions of callistemon, the Captain Cook variety. But we used to have in our old office, we had a whole hedge of these growing outside the main window, and we would produce callistemon honey basically because the bees were just in this bush the whole time, and it was lovely.
Okay, so where did that initiative come from? Who drove this initiative to be planting more bee food basically in Canberra?
Well, the urban forest was designed by Weston, the first forester in Canberra. So it was designed to have a variety of tree species all through the forest estate. So they experimented with a lot of European trees, but the trial plantings were often a bit unsuccessful. So they quickly switched over to Australian natives, and some tried and tested exotic trees like the oaks and the others, the known street trees that work really well.
And so is this like a test pilot for the rest of Australia, or is there other states or cities that you're aware of that are running out this sort of plan?
Yeah, Melbourne is doing wonderful things with their urban forests. They have a really well-refined system. I know that in Europe, you have a lot of pollinator pathways being created through cities, and Canberra's just starting to do that now. Myself and a group called ACT for Bees, we've been having meetings with ministers recently, and that's to talk about with the local ministers for the ACT government, and that's really to talk about how we can improve the amount of flowering trees, but not just gross numbers, making sure that we have a continual availability of nectar throughout the year. That's really important for native bees, that we don't just have these big rushes of nectar. That suits European honeybees, and that's fine for us. We don't mind that. But what we really want for native species is the Australian bush has been conditioned to have this continual flow of something flowering all the time to sustain them. Cities have a potential, particularly climate change. One of the responses is to turn cities into a refuge for native species, to use the fact that we have well-watered, well-maintained gardens. They can be a really important refuge for native species and also a migratory pathway. So it's looking at finding out where the gaps are in the city to make sure that we don't have an urban desert, that we do have street trees that are flowering at different times of the year, that they provide a pathway, to make sure the parks aren't kept as like a manicured, oversprayed, overmown lawn, that you basically just have this nice base of nectar and pollen being produced throughout the year.
Melbourne, this is happening in Melbourne. Is this the Melbourne City?
Yeah, this is Melbourne City, and some of the councils as well. Some of the outer councils have been getting on board too. So the Melbourne City really is mostly featuring things like they're mostly trying to grow trees that cool the city. In cities, you have a real problem, what's called an urban heat island effect, and it's one of the mechanisms for heat waves being much worse in cities than they would be in country areas. It's bad in country areas, but it can be particularly deadly in cities where you have this heat island forming.
Well, that's right.
And
like
trees,
yeah,
and trees are the cure for that. Yeah, so trees, and what a lot of people don't realise, heat waves are the most dangerous part of climate change. They're the ones that kill more people than any other phenomenon. And using trees to cool the cities down is one of the most important ways we can respond to basically as an adaptation to a changing climate.
Interesting.
But while we're at it, we can make it functional too. So that's what we're pushing for as beekeepers and as environmentalists. So by all means, let's grow trees, but let's not just grow any old tree.
Yeah.
If we can, let's try and have trees that do more than one thing at once. And a bit of inspiration from bees. Look at bees. Nothing they produce does just one job. Everything. Their honey is also insulation. The propolis is also their medicine cabinet, but it's also their gap sealer. Everything they make has lots of different functions. and we should try and emulate that if we can.
And so addressing the honeybee, and then as far as the native bees go, do you have bee hotels really popular in Canberra?
Yeah, they really are, and they work really well. We've had them out at the Jerrabombra Wetlands Apiary. We've had Dr. Peter Abbott is a bee hotel expert, and he's had them out there for a long time. And we were sort of wondering if they'd be occupied when we first put them out. We've got a whole bunch of different varieties. We've got mud bricks, we've got the woodblock style, we've got the ones you've probably seen, which are filled with bamboo stalks.
Yeah.
And the occupancy's been fantastic. We've had something like 17 different species move in. And not just bees. We've had grass-carrying wasps, mud dauber wasps, potter wasps, but also resin bees, leafcutter bees, and a whole host of reed bees. So it's lovely. It's wonderful.
That's awesome. Because I had one of those bee hotels for about 2 years in my backyard, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. So
more flowers, and put it in morning sun. We found that where we had them was in morning sun, and it was a relatively exposed site, and the bees turned up. It helps that where we have our main apiary, our training apiary at Jerrabombra Wetlands, it's right next to a wetland, which has, obviously no spraying, it has high bird life, it has high biodiversity. You've also got, within where we have our apiary, is what's called Canberra City Farm. So it's a training site, not just for beekeepers, but also for gardeners, and they run it to showcase organic gardening techniques. So there's no sprays, and basically, lots of flowers year round. So I think that's the ideal situation we should try and aim for.
Totally supported by government. All these initiatives.
Yeah, actually the government gives us the land for free and is really supportive in allowing, they're helping with, controlling access. We have locked gates to try and, reduce theft. We have had hives stolen, but we've still managed to get lots of support from the ACT government. They've been fantastic. They've been really good. And we see it, now. We see them planning these.
How do you think that we approach, for those of us all around Australia who are interested in promoting this sort of environment, how do you suggest that who do we contact?
Ask the question, start conversations with people and be positive.
Yeah.
Talk about it. This is what we're looking to do. We think this would work really well. We'd like to try it. We try it in a small way, and then we can try more things as time goes on. And we found that works really, really well. That you ask people nicely,
Yes.
Persistence is the main thing that generates success more than anything else. Just don't give up. Don't become disheartened. If someone says, look, I really just don't want to do it, then listen to them and respect that. And then say, well, okay, but the person sitting next to you, can I talk to them? Okay, move on. If one council doesn't want to do it, that's okay. But the council next to them, maybe they're a different story. And then make sure you showcase the success of that and the positive nature of what you're doing. And then you'll find that the council that was concerned, a lot of the time people are not actually opposed intrinsically. They've just got concerns. You just have to answer a lot of questions, and you have to start small, do a few trials, and just keep going, and just don't give up.
There's about 1,000 beekeepers in the Canberra region.
Yeah, we think that's about the number we've got. We try and get all of them registered. It's obviously a requirement, but as far as we can tell, that's the number of beekeepers we have around the traps.
Okay.
I think about 600, 700 of them are sort of occasionally come to interact with the Canberra region beekeepers. I think we have over 500 members now, which is fantastic.
Oh, that's fantastic for that population.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And we have this really lovely, vibrant club. Again, it helps that we've got a really big training apiary. We can have nice big field days, and we can do things that really involve the members. It's nice.
It's lovely to hear you being so well supported.
Yeah, look, it really is. We know we're lucky, because I know that a lot of other people, when I talk to them, they don't get the same support from their local governments or their state governments. Look, we are very appreciative. We are lucky. We have a very supportive ACT government, and we absolutely make sure we say thank you whenever we can, like now.
Yes, thank you.
Because it's a huge advantage having such a supportive government, but also that they're interested in outcomes, which is good.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. One more little question: the code of practice.
Yes.
Care to elaborate on that a bit more and your involvement?
Yeah, so this is something that we also did jointly with the ACT government. They were interested in putting a code of practice in to control beekeeping in a more positive, and again, trying to be positive about it, but also trying to give people guidance, but make it a code of practice, proper code of practice. You know, there are a couple of things you really have to hit, and they are public safety. You know, don't have your hives where they can harm or cause discomfort or concern to members of the public. So no more than, you know, make sure there's a setback of at least 8 metres from public paths. Control swarming, you know, manage your swarms, make sure that you catch them, that you try and do proper splits, that you requeen if you need to. If you don't want to requeen because you're doing natural beekeeping, make sure you have catch boxes and that you do splits regularly. Generally, it's been really good that the fact that we were able to develop the code in conjunction with the ACT government. There was a lot of consultation, and there was some concern when we first put the code in. People were worried about how it would be implemented and the attitude that would be taken, and it's been really good. We have had some times where we've helped the ACT government with the application of it, particularly if they find derelict beehives that someone's just abandoned and left. They call us, and we help them free of charge remove them from public lands or from someone's backyard when they just go, I don't know where this came from. I bought this house and there's this derelict beehive. We do swarm catching for ACT government. We remove the swarms from their possum boxes and bird boxes for them.
Yep.
So there's a couple of things we help each other out with, and that's part of the code of practice, just controlling that and then in promoting good beekeeping.
So this code of practice is specifically for Canberra?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. So most states and territories now have a code of practice in some way for beekeeping, mainly focused on biosecurity.
Yes.
We have, this is for specific to recreational beekeepers in the urban environment. So it's more than just biosecurity. It is biosecurity, of course, but also more than that. It's about making sure you're not causing a nuisance for the neighbours of the public.
Yep. And also too, how are you finding young up-and-coming beekeepers? Is there an interest being shown by young kids? And if so, are you doing any work in schools or any education or?
Yeah, we have people who do outreach to schools. ACT for Bees is sort of another organisation that works in the ACT area, and they do a lot of stuff with native bees, and they have actually developed a curriculum for schools. Fantastic curriculum that's now been adopted in schools to educate kids about bees. They run workshops all the time. But in terms of up and coming, there's a lot of really fantastic, especially young female beekeepers out there. So my second in charge, the person I would collaborate with a lot in the Parliament Apiary, Sarah Asheron. She's I think she's 19, 20-year-old young beekeeper, and she's fantastic. But actually, ironically, a much more experienced beekeeper than I am. She's been doing it almost her whole life. Yeah. So she's one of the people I would ask advice from more than. So I handle the paperwork, but in terms of difficult stuff to do with bees, I'm actually deferring to her in a lot of cases.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, Cormac, we need to wrap this up. I'd like to thank you for your time. Really appreciate it very much, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again.
Absolutely. Anytime. Catch you later.
Thank you.